I just did the calculations. If you bump it 10 more miles to 160, that would include everything from San Jose down to Ventura.
Well, we could do that. I mean, it's
I just literally just
Googled
Googled
it.
it. Yeah, I did.
Realistically, anything within 250 miles, I think is more than reasonable, because you're capturing everything from essentially the Bay Area to SoCal.
Mm-hmm.
If someone
Yeah,
had to
this-
drive up from either or, I mean,
Yeah, we're paying for 'em.
Oildale and Bakersfield.
But that's the part where we can get them, then we can review and get, you know.
what we want us to not do is limit the response.
Okay.
So if you say it's 250 miles, we may get people from
But
LA. Well, in their fee proposal,
They're gonna be.
they're gonna
more.
be stipulating travel costs and cost for each employee. And you can look at that and say, well, obviously, based on your additional costs, you are not as inexpensive and cost effective as this guy.
Right.
So I think from a response standpoint, putting it at a reduced mile radius will limit the responses. And I think that we'd be better served getting more rather than less.
have a consent from the board, 250?
250, I agree with that.
1, 2, 3,
Yes.
4? Okay,
Yes.
250.
Would you guys like to,
Raise it to 300?
Do I hear three?
well, this is asking for a request to authorize and approve,
Do we need a voice vote on this?
with the
or what?
document
Oh, we will.
notation in there about owner of the document that are produced. I agree with that strongly, because that became a very,
But
Yes.
that wouldn't be an RFP.
But it's-
Well, that's gotta be in the
it's
contract, though.
contractual, so I wouldn't necessarily put it in the RFP.
okay.
But there are some other elements that I think need to be in there.
Okay.
For example, the payment terms and some other things that are not in there now.
Maybe you guys wanna get together.
If that's the thing, it's primarily your schedule minus Mondays for me.
Well, whatever you want to put in there, it's the board approving the RFPs that would have to be done now.
Yeah, so we need to go through it now, really, we do.
Okay.
Do you have it with, can we, you ready to go?
I have it, sure.
That, or I think our timeline would be off.
Yes, it would, because it wouldn't be out for 30 days if we even wait till May 2nd. So we
Where
have
you
to-
wanna start, Ashley? Hi.
So, I think the overall document is pretty relevant, and there's not a great deal of changes I would make. When we're talking about some of the things that are in the scope,
Okay.
it's mentioned in several passages that services would be performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards.
Can you give me a paragraph here anywhere?
Under scope and audit, paragraph 1, sentence 1, page
Okay.
2.
According to general, it's okay, auditing standards?
So the issue with anything where you say generally accepted, it's very, very open to interpretation. What I think is generally accepted may not be the same as what you think is generally accepted. So, I would.
Get rid of it generally accepted?
I mean, you could say, I would say, with the highest accounting standards. I mean, there needs to be some way where you have an expectation
Okay.
that can't be interpreted. Even saying, I mean. Oh, agreed. The whole first sentence, I don't know if it's all really that relevant.
Okay. So, I'm gonna take out generally accepted and put highest auditing standards.
Or do you think the whole first sentence should come out and just start with the
The auditor will
auditors will
evaluate.
evaluate?
I would probably just dump the first sentence.
I need to get board consensus on this as we do this, okay, guys?
Okay.
Agreed?
Agree.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, all opposed? Yeah, okay.
In the last paragraph on the same page, the last sentence states auditing firm will retain all working papers at the firm's expense for a minimum of 5 years or longer. It states if required by generally accepted auditing standards. So the question would be, is there some guideline that states generally accepted accounting standards that would require a firm to retain records for 5 or more years?
I'd have to go to Helene for that.
And are they thinking our records or what they produce?
Says it would be retain all working papers at the firm's expense for a minimum of 5 years or longer if required by generally accepted accounting standards.
Yeah, so everybody, so each document for record retention purposes, different documents under guidelines have different lengths of time for retention. I don't know off the top of my head what financial documents are, but that's something that y'all can negotiate with them to say, look, like, we enter a contract for 3 years, you have to keep the documents for 5 years after. That's common that we put that in a contract. But I don't know, the auditors have their own set of guidelines and standards, and I don't know what those are in terms of record retention.
Right, I guess my concern, Helene, is that if we're stating that we want these to be retained for 5 years or longer based on generally accepted auditing standards,
What are the standards?
whose standard is that defined by?
Then I would just say the auditing firm will retain all working papers at the firm's expense for a minimum of 5 years, period.
Right, that's my thought too.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
On page 3, under independence, we again have generally accepted auditing standards listed. So
And
it
we go
should,
by a different auditing standard, right? Government auditing standards.
Does the Government Accounting Standards Board, does that, do they set those standards, or?
I don't know, what are general accounting standards? Generally accepted.
There are generally accepted accounting standards and there's governmental accounting standards. I do know that those are actual things. I don't know what the difference is between the two, I couldn't tell you.
Mhm.
I'm not a, auditor, or our CPA would be able to tell us. Can we remove that one too?
I would say the firm should provide an affirmation statement that it is independent of the district as defined, well, it's independent of the district.
Period.
Period, yes.
Yeah, I agree there too. We are working off some old documents, so, all in favor of doing that?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Heard that.
Bless you.
You got some more standards?
There is a point where we're talking about,
Well,
okay,
this is, we're gonna change the 150 miles to 250, right?
on page 6, second paragraph, progress payments will be made on the basis of hours of work performed during the course of the engagement in accordance with the firm's formal bidding proposal. Interim billing shall cover a period of not less than 1 calendar month. In this passage, we should define that payments will be made on net 30 terms, and firm will provide invoice after service period has been rendered, or after service is rendered.
Service period?
Did you say?
After service period is fine, because my thought is they're probably
Yeah.
gonna bill us monthly,
Yeah,
so we're stating that we're gonna be paying not less than 1 calendar month per period, and we
Yeah.
should define
That
that.
has to be in.
yeah.
Everybody sees
In-
second paragraph?
Interim billings shall cover a period of no less than 1 month, 1 calendar month. Payments will be made in net 30 terms. Firm will provide invoice after service period. Period. Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aside from that, I don't have any other changes.
Anybody?
I was just doing some quick research and reading. Do we want, our auditors to belong to the, or part of the AICPA?
What is the
Yeah,
AICPA?
can just do the CPAs or any of those other professional boards, so you know that they have to a little bit of a higher standard. I'm just throwing it out there. I
There's
just,
probably a lot of different groups that would certify accountants and or CPAs. I would say professional certifications are desired.
Yeah, it's desirable.
Just not one
Mhm.
certification.
I think we should put that, those requirements.
Because I mean, to be a CPA, you're licensed by the state
Right.
to begin with, and I understand what you're saying with
Yeah.
a higher level of
General
performance.
requirements, maybe?
You know, that professional
Yeah.
organizations bring.
Maybe we can add a passage after license to practice,
License to practice.
Okay,
somewhere in there, for it to say, something to the effect of, professional certifications are desired. And affiliation with, what would that be?
Professional organizations.
Professional accounting organizations,
professional.
also desired.
It's hard. Affiliation with professional accounting,
Yeah, that's part again.
yeah,
So we want to.
affiliation with professional accounting, what's that word we're looking for?
Organization.
Organizations.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just gonna add that to license to practice, provide
In California.
California. I can't even read my own handwriting. Professional certifications are desired and affiliation with professional accounting organizations. Period. We'll word it a little better than that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Anything else, guys? Yeah, put that in.
Any other board
Keep
comments?
that.
No.
That was important.
I'm glad you're here. How's that?
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve and authorize the release of the RFP as amended?
Yeah, it's amended.
I make a motion to approve the RFP as amended.
No, second that motion.
Amended. Box. Sign here. Director Parent,
Yes.
Director Palafox,
Yes.
Director Calvins,
Yes.
Vice President Sangster.
Yes.
Approved 4-0 with one absent, as amended.
Okay, moving on to number 8, discuss options regarding office space for the administrative offices of San Miguel CSD.
So, over the past, more than a year or so, just with the growth of the district, we find ourselves in need of some changes and space, with all the work that's going on. We started the process of completing upstairs, and you guys know the situation where there's sparked a conversation and has led us to the point where we're at now, and that is, we came up with, couple different proposals of how to create more room for the CSD, for the district. Some are modifications to this structure, some are modifications adding to this structure in a couple different ways, and having another option with our sewer plant being remodeled and revamped, of possibly creating space over there. Kelly's put a lot of work into a couple different designs and ideas. This is something we want to get out and start discussing, because a couple issues. We have to resolve our issues upstairs, resolve our issues here. We need to create more space. So with that, I'll let him dive into it, and he's got a couple really good ideas. This is probably going to require a special meeting in the future, so we can put a lot of, look at a lot of the details, because it sounds like it's going to be a fairly significant thing, but it also will be fairly urgent, because part of the plan will be, part of his plan for the sewer plant, if we choose to do development in that area.
But not May.
Not in May.
No.
Just saying.
The
Why
June's
not?
gonna be light.
Sunday morning and I'm like kidding.
So there really is three options. In your staff report, the three options are kind of outlining the pros and cons. The first option, which is probably the most reasonable cost-wise, is to relocate the offices to the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, without this, we are building a building anyway, roughly 10,000 square foot building. With this, with the addition of these offices there, we'd be basically adding 1,000 to 2,000 square feet to that building. Modifying some of the existing proposed space for that building, and basically just adding 5 to 6 offices and a meeting room. Whether we move our administrative offices there or not, we are building a building there. It is going to have the majority of the facilities that we need in a administrative building anyway. So really the most fiscally responsible thing would be to build offices there in a building we're already building under a grant. So with that in mind, basically the pros for doing that would be obviously significantly less cost over all the other options. Just to add office space and parking space during the plant expansion. It would consolidate definitely all the utility functions, but all the administrative functions into one point, and allow the fire department to utilize this building more effectively for fire department uses, which is going to be increasingly important over the next coming years. The fire station would again revert back to a total fire station, being allowed to use it for all the space for fire, and allow for expansion and remodel of the space instead of having to add on more space. Most of the site improvements that would be needed are already going to be done at the treatment plant. Here, if we add on a building here, we're going to have to bring in basically all the infrastructure, or remove and replace the infrastructure that's here now to accommodate a new building. And the cons, the only con I've identified is that customers would have to go to the treatment plant to pay bills or to talk to a staff person. We have been throwing around the idea of having a secure lockbox, drop box here at the fire station for people who don't want to drive down there and just want to drop off a payment, which is entirely doable. After we go through these, I have 2 concepts that we can look at when I get through this first. So, the second option would be to build a new office building on the district property next to the fire station, which is